There was always something strange about our dog, Maximum. He was a big, scruffy German shepherd we adopted when I was just a child, and for years he was a beloved member of our family. But as time went on, things began to change, specifically, the way Max looked at my brother, Jake. It started subtly at first. Max would follow Jake around, his eyes fixed on him with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. At first, we brushed it off as just normal dog behavior. But then it became more noticeable. Max started growling when Jake came near, even when Jake was being perfectly calm. It was strange. The other members of the family, Mom, Dad, and me, never experienced this from Maximum. He was as loving and loyal as ever with the rest of us. But with Jake, it was different. One night, I was lying in bed when I heard strange noises coming from the living room. At first, I thought it was just the house settling, but then I heard Jake's voice, his tone shaky and frightened. I crept out of my room and peeked into the hallway. Through the crack of the door, I saw Jake standing in the living room, Max pacing back and forth in front of him. His growls were low, rumbling, but unmistakable. Jake was frozen, his face pale, his eyes wide with fear. "Max, stop," Jake whispered, but the dog didn't stop. His eyes were locked on Jake with an intensity one had never seen before. It wasn't just a look of aggression, it was something darker, something predatory. Max's pupils were dilated, his teeth bared in a grimace that was more menacing than I had ever seen. The dog's growl grew louder, and I felt a chill run down my spine. "Jake?" I whispered, stepping into the living room. Max immediately turned to look at me, his gaze still cold and unblinking, but it was as if he'd known I was there all along. He slowly walked toward me, but the moment his eyes met Jake's again, he returned to his pacing. It was as if he was being controlled by something else, something that wanted only Jake. That night, Jake refused to sleep in his room. He ended up on the couch, too scared to go back to his bed. We all thought it was just a phase, Max was getting older, maybe his behavior was changing. But as the days passed, it became worse. Max wouldn't let Jake near him, not even for a pet or a hug. If Jake got too close, Max would snap, baring his teeth and growling fiercely. It was as if the dog was trying to keep him away, and Jake could feel it, the weight of Max's hatred. At night, we heard the scratching and pacing outside Jake's bedroom door. Max would stand there, staring at Jake through the crack beneath the door, eyes glowing in the dark. His breathing was heavy, uneven, like a predator waiting to pounce. Things came to a head one stormy night. Jake had finally had enough. He decided to leave the house, unable to bear the constant tension between him and Max any longer. But as soon as he opened the door to the outside, Max was there. He stood in the doorway, blocking Jake's path, his eyes full of rage. This time, there was no growling, no barking. Just silence. The storm howled outside, but the air inside the house felt thick, suffocating. It was as if the dog knew something Jake didn't, something far worse than just a strange behavior. Max was never just a dog. He was something else, something sinister.